the dead soldiers received the thorough investigation their deaths deserved. In all of these cases, the bereaved families have serious complaints about insensitive treatment and a lack of disclosure by the army. Critics of the armed forces find it hard to escape the conclusion that whilst these young men and women were prepared to lay down their lives for their country, in death they are little more than a number. But these deaths are just the tip of the iceberg. The full statistics make for grim reading. The Ministry of Defence has recently been forced to reveal that since 1990, nearly 2,000 servicemen and women lost their lives in non-combat deaths. In the last 10 years, it's been 40 times more dangerous off the battlefield than on it. We asked the MOD, why are so many young servicemen and women dying in peacetime? Why should it be more dangerous for a soldier to be in the barracks than on the battlefield?
Any one death is a death too many, but in any army the number of non-combatant deaths are by and large, even in a war, going to be greater than those in combat, other than in the rare, brief and awful moments of fighting. And that's historically, unfortunately, the norm. I think we're very careful as an army to make sure that no unnecessary deaths occur.
But you're saying it is the norm that more people die in peacetime in barracks than at war?
No, I didn't say in barracks. I said that non-combatants would die, in peace or in war. If you look at any large conflicts in history, in the recent past, you'll see that that is broadly the case. It's not something to do with peacetime as such. We are a very large organisation.
Of course, there are casualties, accidents, even suicides in many professions. But there is no disguising the fact that you are 22 times more likely to end up dead in the army in peacetime than in any other career.
If we take out the road traffic accidents and suicides even, the fatality rate in the army is still 22 per 100,000, which is 22 times more dangerous than anywhere else.
Well, I don't know where those statistics have come from.
Those are statistics from MOD statistics.
Well, I can't comment on those. I haven't seen those statistics. I'm sorry, I'm out of my depth.
But these figures fit into the pattern we've already uncovered about the Ministry of Defence's attitude towards the welfare of its young recruits. Critics point to an arrogance and lack of concern surrounding its assumptions of suicide and a complacency about the supervision of young recruits with lethal weapons. But there is a third dangerous ingredient that has helped to create a climate in which violence and even murder can thrive in the armed services. This former soldier claims that he was the victim of extreme bullying.
Some guys just come in after being the lash and they would punch me and kick me. We don't like you. You're not good enough to be in our company. You're not good enough to be in the army.
This award-winning recruit became so terrified during his service that he went AWOL rather than face the soldiers and officers who were bullying him. We've agreed to disguise his identity because he is frightened he could be targeted for publicising his experiences.
They do it in a way that they can't get found out. You need physical proof. And these, they're not stupid. You put a piece of soap into a sock, tie it, and then thump me across the chest with it. The bruise won't come up because it's getting padded by the sock. It gets to the point where you think, oh my God, what's going to happen tonight? Am I going to see the morning?
This testimony comes as no surprise to solicitor Robert Peterson. Recently, his firm was dealing with up to 60 claims from former servicemen and women who had suffered violent abuse.
The initiation ceremonies are quite worrying. I've known of two where one young soldier was tied to a cannon and whipped senseless. of another initiation ceremony of a new recruit. He was placed in the field and told to kneel down in the execution position and was told not to move, and that if he did, he would be shot through the head. And of course, you are dealing with people who are experts in the art of warfare and killing. And I'm sure that it's possible that in a circumstance like that, it could have been made to look like some form of accident or suicide, perhaps.
Robert Peterson believes there are bullying cells operating within the British Army.
I think what we are faced with is that there are certain cells of people that move around. They are mercurial in their movements. It's difficult to track them down, where they go and what they do. The cells that we are talking about are generally officers' training teams, they're called. And we've seen on occasions the same name coming up in witness statements. I'm sure that it's not only me, but my colleagues countrywide must say, well, if we know, why doesn't the Ministry of Defence know about this? And why aren't they doing something about it?
In response to the protests of soldiers' families, a Defence Minister has recently requested an inquiry into the training regime within the British Army. But the Ministry of Defence claims the Army doesn't have a major bullying problem.
Actually, the instances of bullying or harassment are happily very low in the Army. From that point of view, the inquiry, the investigation the Minister has asked for would spread its net much more widely into the whole process of induction of soldiers into training and the way in which we try and help them to come to terms with the challenges of Army life.
But in spite of this official line that bullying isn't a major problem, our research reveals that the culture of violence and intimidation is even more widespread than the cells of abusers uncovered by Robert Peterson. We've interviewed a former serviceman who admits to being a bully. He claims the culture of bullying is completely endemic and deliberately ignored by senior officers. His statements are read by an actor.
There's two levels of selection. There's the official selection, and then there's the real selection. The weakest links have to be taken out because you don't want to stand next to them on the front line. The last fella who I helped to beat up was in a mess. I mean, he would have needed some serious medical attention. I've got no regrets about that at all. He shouldn't have been in the armed forces, and he needed to learn that. Well, the people in charge don't bat an eyelid because they know how it works. Obviously, they know it goes on because they have to pick up the people who've been beat up.
What is even more sinister is that the bully claims to have threatened to kill one of his victims.
I once held a loaded gun to the head of a recruit, and I told him I was going to shoot him and make it look like a suicide. I mean, he had admitted that he was scared to go and fight, so he had to be punished. I mean, at the time we thought we were going to go and fight. I mean, he had to learn that there's no getting out of that.
During the research for this film, from different sources we were given the same information. It's possible to get away with murder in the armed services by making a death look like suicide, knowing it won't be investigated. Our own witness recalls the climate of fear he experienced as a young soldier.
I feared for my life. I was scared that I was going to die in there and they were going to make it look like suicide.
In all of the cases I've seen, that you could not assume suicide. What you would have to do is prove it was suicide, and they haven't done in any of them.
Could these army deaths be the result of extreme bullying, leading not to suicide, but to murder?
The weakest links have to be taken out.
Paul secretly recorded a conversation with a superior officer about being denied treatment and home leave. He then wrote to his parents, asking them to listen to the tape.
He was letting us know that they were putting pressure and they were bullying him on the Monday. And it actually wrote on the letter, listen to the tape, Mum, and put it in brackets. But we never seen the tape, so we didn't.
Hours later, he was speaking to his dad on his mobile phone. He promised he'd call back later to speak to his mum. Then there was a sudden shot.
My husband fell to the floor.
He says he could ring his mum later. You know, it's strange as well, you know. He sounded okay in that phone call when I was speaking to him.
The army told Paul's parents their son had killed himself and refused to give any more information. But one of the army's own investigating officers told their solicitor they should try to get to the bottom of it.
In this particular case, the issue immediately raised itself is that what an extraordinary time to choose that you shoot yourself on a mobile phone conversation to your father.
The other bit, and again it's
Paul's death again raises the concern over lethal weapons being issued to young recruits. In this case, to someone who has just come out of hospital and is confined to barracks, unfit for duty.
been signed off not just by the MO, but it's been signed off by a specialist. Where's the care? Where's somebody looking after him? You know, instead he's got a loaded weapon that I can't understand why he should possibly have a loaded weapon if he's not fit to fire it.
The tape recording of Paul's last meeting was found mangled in the grounds of the camp a few days after his death. Paul's parents were told that it was too damaged to be useful as evidence.
Well, it's obviously somebody destroying evidence, but down the end of the day, it's going to be our word against the army's.
Paul's inquest is yet to be held, even though he died 18 months ago. But the army refuses to further investigate his allegations of bullying. In all of the cases we've explored tonight, the army's duty of care for the victim before or after death has been conspicuously absent. As the media spotlight has been shone on Deepcut, more shocking revelations have emerged. A corporal serving with Private Sean Benton at Deepcut has revealed that Sean was the victim of more than one savage attack by military bullies. On one occasion, he was assaulted by soldiers wearing masks. The army turned a blind eye. Cheryl James had been the victim of sexual harassment, and there are now allegations of serious sexual assault. In Northern Ireland, there have been a substantial number of inquiries into violent and indecent assaults, including male rape in army barracks there.
Apparently there's 17 cases going on down there when Paul died.
It was at the time of Paul's death, there was 17. And on the day Paul got buried, on that night, one of Paul's friends, 17-year-old, he was whipped that night as soon as he went back to barracks by a
After
superior.
the funeral.
Our experts have revealed that the investigations into the Deepcut deaths show a shocking disregard for gathering even basic forensic evidence. And yet, surprisingly, the pathologists in the case of Jeff Gray and James Collinson did see fit to take anal swabs from the victims' bodies, usually taken as a means of establishing homosexual activity or abuse. The test proved negative in both cases.
We ask young people to join the forces, to be prepared to give their lives, to defend the country and to protect us. And therefore we, and members of Parliament and the MOD, have a particular duty of care towards these young people. And we don't seem to be carrying it out properly. Since I last argued this point...
Kevin McNamara has been an MP since 1966 and is a former Labour spokesman on the armed services. He's been leading the campaign to get more information disclosed on the deaths and treatment of soldiers.
These deaths need an answer. The only way that we seem to be able to get that full answer is by having a public inquiry, because at the present moment it looks as though we're trying to get blood out of stones in the failure of the Ministry of Defence to be as open as many of us believe they should be.
Surrey Police are currently re-investigating the 4 Deepcut deaths. They've refused to grant us an interview. However, they do say they believe the Army should reconsider the access to lethal weapons and review supervision of teenage recruits. North Yorkshire Police, who are responsible for investigating the deaths at Catterick Garrison, say all sudden deaths, including those that occur on military bases, are investigated in line with recognised police procedures. The Ministry of Defence refuses to comment on specific cases, but does admit it needs to improve its relationship with bereaved families. From the families left behind, however, there is one very clear message.
The British Army's got one good thing that they always come out to say. They always say that they have nothing to hide. I challenge them, I say that they are hiding something. And it's about time they were honest and open and to let a public inquiry go in there. And let's save some other lives. Let's save some other parents having to go through the grief that we went through, the Greys went through, the Jameses and the Bentons went through. Let's be open. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's stop this now. They're only kids.